Hi, everyone. Happy Pride and welcome back to Cruising. This is Sarah Gabrielli, and since you last heard from me, we've continued to tour our new book, The Lesbian Bar Chronicles. Hosting story shares, panels, and live book readings around the country, Rachel will be heading to the West Coast in July. More information on that at cruisingpod.com/events. And as usual, if you haven't already, you can purchase the book at cruisingpod.com/book or wherever books are sold. This episode I have for you today is from our official book launch event at Ginger's Bar in Brooklyn, back on the day of publication, May 26th. This was the first time we asked the community to come out and share stories about the queer spaces that matter to them. You'll hear tales of queer bookstores, online dating, identity, and of course, lesbian bars. For this Ginger's launch event, we partnered with the folks at Hive Mind Books, a queer-owned independent bookstore and coffee shop in Brooklyn. And up first, we're going to hear from one of the founders, Jules.
Hive Mind Books started as a traveling bookstore. A friend of mine and I, I've been a bookseller for like 20 years. We'd been in book selling for a really long time together, and we had worked for a lot of bookstores that use the word community as a marketing term. And really what they meant was customer, and they didn't take care of the community of their staff, and they weren't necessarily investing in their communities. They just wanted people to shop there. And so we asked ourselves what it would look like if we had a bookstore that really put community first. And that evolved into Hive Mind Books. And when we were a traveling bookstore for a while, and then a spot opened up in my neighborhood in Bushwick, a retail location. And I'd been doing queer book fairs and festivals and markets, and my back really hurt. Books are heavy. When you carry them at once, if you just get one tonight, very light, fits in your bag so well, not gonna hurt. But at that time, Brooklyn had no queer bookstores. And so we decided to give it a shot and see what would happen. And that was about a year and a half ago, and Hive Mind has flourished. It was very clear that this was needed in the community, a space for our queer literature, and a space, we are celebrating bars and we are celebrating wonderful places like Ginger's, but also a sober space for people to hang out that wasn't necessarily rooted in queer nightlife. We weren't expecting that to be as important to people as it was, but of course it makes sense. And so we opened a week before the last presidential election. And we hadn't really thought about that timing. It just sort of happened that way. And the day after, when we opened our doors, and so many people came in just to be around one another and just to be around other queer and trans people specifically, it was really clear from that moment exactly what our purpose was, and that, the mission of community was absolutely foremost the thing we had to do and that was needed. And so we've been doing that ever since. And we host free events all of the time, poetry readings, lit mag launches, really kind of anything, any queer and trans programming. And it's been incredible. It's changed my life. I am a jaded old bookseller, and it's Hive Mind that's really made me believe in bookstores as community spaces again, and also really recognize, especially now, bookstores like lesbian bars for a while were, that entity that was dying, that, indie bookstores are going away. Oh, they can't survive against Amazon. It's not true. They're flourishing, just like all of these queer bars are. But what is really real right now are book bans. I can never remember the numbers. I think it's 7661 has passed the House. It's a federal book ban censoring books that have sexual content. So obviously that's our literature. Like, that's what they're going after. And holding a community space that is there for people and for our literature to keep it in circulation and present for everyone is just incredibly important right now, as is fighting these bans. Anyway, yeah, okay. That's a little about Hive Mind. We also just acquired another bookstore, a queer bookstore in Manhattan, which is the only queer bookstore in Manhattan right now. It's called the Bureau of General Services Queer Division. It's been around for 13 years and has a very similar community-oriented spirit as Hive Mind. And we just had a huge fundraising campaign to save it, and we did. And now we're running that too. So yay for queer spaces. Yeah.
Hello. I'm Samara. I wrote a book called A Long Time Dead that the New York Times called the best sapphic vampire book since Carmilla. So, feels kind of douchey to say, but I've already said it and I can't take it back. Okay. On my 18th birthday, I received a lifetime ban from Divas, Northampton, Massachusetts' infamous, now defunct drag bar. Divas was, in practice, more of a dyke bar than a drag bar. Northampton is and has been for decades the most lesbian town in America, due in no small part to Smith College, which I attended. Smith is a women's college, a dyke college. When I was there, the school's slogan was heady, nervy, intellectually exciting. We would say heavy, nerdy, sexually exciting. And we meant it. On my 18th birthday, I was in love. I had met her for the first time at Accepted Students Weekend at the train station as we waited for the train that would bring us home. She had come alone. I, a coward, had brought my grandmother. My grandmother, who would years later weep in her car over my queerness, was the one to point her out. Look, I bet she's just come from Smith too. It wasn't a leap. She was a young woman with short hair and a book in her lap. I went over to say hi. We exchanged emails. We emailed. We selected the same pre-orientation group, and we kissed and fucked like we invented it. She refused to be my girlfriend. Smith was and is a dyke college. We were among the few who had arrived queer, who had had girlfriends in high school, and had no qualms about the school's gay reputation. She would kiss me and fuck me and promise that she would kiss and fuck other girls too, because we were at Smith. Smith, the first place where we were not mandated to date the only other lesbo we knew. The first place where the dating pool was more than a puddle. To tether herself to me would be to squander this grand opportunity. To date me would be a waste. But she still wanted me, the idea of me, at least. She wanted me when I danced with other girls at house parties. She wanted me when I stumbled into her, drunk, on the path back home and pretended like I hadn't purposely walked past her house. She wanted me when she saw me lap across the quad, and I acted like I hadn't known she was there, watching. I wanted her all the time. I turned 18 November of my first year at Smith, after she and I had settled into our routine of reunion and rejection, when I knew that every moment of her time was borrowed. When my satisfaction in her presence was marred by the certainty that I'd lose her the moment she lost interest. But she wasn't a monster. She saved my birthday for me. We toddled up to Divas after a giggly, messy pregame. I was drunk and indulging my bad habit of hoping that this time I'd do something, say something that would convince her to stay. That I'd prove somehow that the reality of being with me was better than the dream of the sex life Smith provided. But who can compete with a dream? Still, it was my birthday. I'd made a wish. The door dyke at Divas had steely gray curls and discerning eyes. She didn't smile. She carefully drew X's on the backs of the hands of anyone under 21 and indicated entry with a silent wave. Proudly, poorly hiding my obvious intoxication, I provided her with two forms of identification, my high school ID and my Smith ID. She looked at my IDs, then at me, then at the IDs, then me. She said, "These are not government IDs." "Sure," I said, "but there are two." They corroborate each other. It's my birthday. She could not have given less of a shit. No government ID, no entry. I exited the line, dejected. Of course I had no government ID. I was from New York. I couldn't drive. I didn't have a license. My only other form of ID was my passport, and I wasn't going to carry that around in my skinny jeans pocket. It was over. Worse yet, I had lost track of her. My not girlfriend was gone. I had not even done enough to keep her around for one full night, not even my birthday. I was cold. I squeezed my arms over my chest and tried not to cry. It would be a chilly, miserable walk home. I geared up to do it, but a hand reached out to stop me. She was back. "My girl," she said, "go to the side of the building, climb the stairs. I'll be there." Carefully, without alerting the door dyke, I did as I was told. My not-girlfriend was where she promised she'd be. She led me through drag queens' dressing rooms into the club. The air was hot and malty, the room filled with girls I had seen on campus. There was a lesbian pouring lemon drop shots behind the bar. I was at my first gay bar. I was in love. I was so happy I cried. We danced, she and I, in public, and she didn't even look at other girls. We kissed, and I hoped. I don't know how the door dyke spotted me, but she did. She shooed me into the night, shouting, "You're banned. Never come back." I couldn't care, not after the night I had. Not with my not-girlfriend holding my hand all the way back to my dorm, my bed. She would leave in the morning, I knew, but it was my birthday, and I had made a wish. The ban didn't stick. The door dyke had not taken my name nor my picture. Months later, after I got my learner's permit, I went back wearing a hat and sunglasses like Carmen Sandiego. I got past the same door dyke. Maybe she knew it was me. Maybe she didn't care. Maybe she didn't actually want to ban a young homo on her birthday. I'll never know. I had many ignoble nights at Divas. I saw my friends steal full bottles of liquor from behind the bar, or lick the X's off their hands in order to pass as 21. Once, a friend made me go when I had a stomach virus, and I ended up taking a shit at the club. I'm still made fun of for that. I'm sad there won't be any more generations of Smithies with diva stories like mine. I cherish those stories, press them between the pages of my journal like flowers. They smell like sweat and spilled beer, like menthols and Smirnoff Ice. They make my knees hurt, my teeth. In every picture, I look like shit, drunk and run ragged. I look so incredibly happy. Me and my not-girlfriend were on and off for years. Our final breakup was junior year, an explosive confrontation in Paris, another story. I learned that there was nothing I could have done to keep her. She learned that I wouldn't stick around forever. We see each other every couple of years. We share a best friend. I wonder if she remembers that night like I do, sharp as crystal and just as bright. I wonder if she made a wish that night too. I wonder what she wished for. Thank you.
If I can describe what you're about to hear, I'd say picture if Carrie Bradshaw were a Marxist transgender man. And before I continue, I want to shout out my comrade's son, who took time away from their job as a professional editor of books to offer editorial feedback on this. So thank you, son. This is a working title, but okay, here we go. 30, 5'3", 130 pounds, slim side FTM. How does a lesbian end up on Sniffies? I knew this question would come up sooner or later as I began explaining my recent adventures to a table of gay men, at this bar actually. Especially considering lesbian isn't even an option for sexuality on your Sniffies profile. The answer, however, is quite simple. After the excruciating monotony of boring conversations going nowhere in my Lex DMs, I needed something totally different. I am a lesbian trans man who's mostly into trans women that typically like other women. Having contorted myself into this marvelously inconvenient position, I knew only a bold act would be a worthy next move to meet the absurdity of this sexual journey I'm on. I took my first topless mirror selfie, added my explicit sexual desires to my Sniffies profile, and jumped right into a hyper-masculine space without even having a firm footing in my own identity as a man. Sniffies, here I come. Writer Samuel Delaney offers a framework of urban engagement based on the 90s culture of cruising. There's networking, which he describes as a class-segregated, institutionally orchestrated, and professionally advantageous social exchange, motivated by ambition. For example, an office holiday party or a writer's conference, or even me connecting with someone at this event who could maybe put me onto another opportunity. And then there's contact, the organic and ephemeral connections to people in your proximity across race, class, age, and beyond. For example, having a conversation with the bodega guy or fucking a neighborhood stranger behind the walls of the park bathrooms. Delaney says contact sustained over time, more than networking, is what offers a true sense of safety and social well-being. As a lesbian man, I have experienced Lex as a means to networking and Sniffies as a means to making contact. On Sniffies, it's almost instant. Messages like, hi, how are you? 200 to worship your pussy. 300 to allow me to eat you. 300 to worship your pussy and ass. I was confused at this auctioning system and the audacity to bring my ass into it without even increasing his price. Once I moved past the initial shock, I started to learn about the economy of this microcosm. On Lex, the open-ended, longer but still short space for your bio invites you to identify yourself in pithy word pairings with about 1 to 3 emojis. The goal is to demonstrate a nonchalant friendliness with politics and cleverness, but only skimming the surface. Underneath this manicured language, we filter by class, education, and proximity to clout. Do you go to cool parties? Do you have an interesting job? On Sniffies, however, we use precise descriptors. Age, sex, height, weight, penis size, penis girth, sexuality, and sexual position. We filter by carnal desire. On Lex, over half the people I encounter are white. On Sniffies, interactions with white men are few and far between. My messages on Lex felt like networking banter with a bunch of profiles looking to promote themselves. My messages on Sniffies, though rarely including full sentences, still felt more like a shared language, a gay sexual lexicon with clear stakes and desires. They made me feel the way I wanted to feel on any dating app. Sexy. Whether exchanging orgasms, fluids, cuddles, photos, or whatever currency of intimacy and pleasure for another, sex is a barter of services. Lesbians, however, my people, are often too polite to act in alignment with this truth, and instead treat sex as a precarious dance. My Lex feed is filled with cries of loneliness and dissatisfaction. How are we all longing for the same thing, but unable to provide it to each other? What needs are we hiding? What desires are left unsaid? Who do we really want to be? For lesbians, I see them as gender marginalized people who, like other gender marginalized people, were never quite allowed to indulge our sexual needs and wants like cis men. Lesbians are afraid to make the first move is not some sentimental prudence. It's a chasm dividing us from attunement with our desires. U-hauling, it's not relational integrity. It's escapism through fantasy of a romantic savior before the true intimacy of knowing another can even emerge. How much time have I lost in emotional and sexual dishonesty? Hey, good morning, dude. I read at the top of the Sniffies messages tab at 8:30 a.m., shortly after waking up. Below that, several photos of an 8-inch penis in varied lighting. One awkwardly close-up photo of a handsome face with plush, trimmed facial hair, and a short list of desires. Licking your chest, tongue fucking your hole, S in parentheses, verbatim, and sucking your nub, among others. I was likely being objectified by an FTM chaser, but I still took note of his word choice, specifically the absence of the more gendered tits and pussy. Hours later, I responded with a shirtless selfie from my lower abdomen to just beneath my nose. I sent it quickly before I could overthink my way out, but scrutinized my breasts and my stomach rolls as I nervously waited for a response. "You're hot, bro." The euphoria from his recognition of my manhood stayed with me all day. I had never felt so safe and seen sharing intimacy with a stranger on an app, let alone sniffies. But how? Despite being explicitly chased for my tits and my pussy, I felt far more humanized. Under the artifice of open-mindedness and the assertions of leftism, Lex had left me feeling alienated and displaced. Whether the brutal inertia of a conversation or plan ending in ghosting, by me or them, or the exhausting helplessness of seeing yet another no men or AFAB only post, Lex was killing my soul, reminding me of the app users' narrow devotion of lesbian and their short-sighted understanding of its expansiveness as an identity. Sniffies, however, was reviving it. After the pain of hiding my desires, a straightforward presentation of myself and others, even if imperfect, was more affirming than the endless suggestions. Living in suggestion gives people license to choose the version of me that's easiest to digest. Perhaps the dirty depths of being a man can only truly be seen on a dotted map of ass, cock, and balls. After centuries of oppression, that something like sniffies can emerge only affirms my belief that the LGBT community is unstoppable. By unapologetically acknowledging the transactionality of sex, the people on sniffies somehow transcend it. By moving anonymously and impersonally, sniffies encourages the vulnerable intimacy one might assume it precludes. Whether my exchanges on sniffies materialize in hookups or not, spoiler alert, they did, the act of cruising connects me with a lineage of interclass and interracial solidarity under the universal truth of horniness. And somehow, even without any real physical contact, I still manage to feel so touched. Thank you.
All right, thank you for having me. I'm usually here playing cool at Ginger's, but this is something different. All right. You're queer, right? It was more of a statement than a question. We were mid-interview. I was supposed to be talking to them about their sexual history, but all of a sudden the tables had turned. My co-host turned to me inquiringly. It's not the first time I've been outed by someone. At a family dinner, my ex-husband's niece asked me if I was still dating women. A cacophony of knives and forks clattered onto plates as all eyes turned towards me. People have always assumed, and I trusted their read on me more than my own. Was it the Doc Martens that gave me away? I decided to consult my inner circle. First, I spoke to a girlfriend who had recently and loudly begun declaring herself queer. Post-breakup with a man, she had developed an intense infatuation with a woman, but admitted she had never actually had sex with one, a detail I felt disqualified her opinion. Next, I spoke to a friend who admitted that he used to be on Grindr, but considered himself heterosexual, claiming that no one could find his sexuality but him, and that sometimes you just want to get your dick sucked. Finally, I went to the source, a gold-star lesbian. If anyone had the answer to whether I was queer or not, surely it was her. We met at a dive bar. Over a game of pool, I offered her a brief breakdown of my dating history, which she contemplated with intensity. I think you're on the team, she proclaimed, sliding a whiskey across the bar like some kind of ceremonial offering. The queen of lesbians had accepted me and welcomed me into the fold. Still, I felt uneasy.
It felt wrong to be able to dip my toe into community whenever desire strikes. It's not like I was painting myself rainbow and kissing girls exclusively on Pride, but I felt awkwardly sandwiched between worlds. Maybe that's why I kept outsourcing the answer, looking for a panel of judges, a public ruling, a stamp of approval. But sexuality isn't a jury vote. It's not decided by your dating history or your Doc Martens. For now, I think the only person allowed to define my sexuality is me, which is deeply inconvenient because I was really hoping someone else would figure it out for me.
I'm going to share a couple poems and a story with you. All right, who remembers the old Lex with like the clean typeface, very aesthetically pleasing, a little bit of like cerulean, was it? Okay, so I want you to visualize that for the formatting of this poem. I wrote this poem in 2022, and each line is the title of a Lex post. Catchy title. Hello, new girl here, Upper Manhattan, vulnerable and speaking, single and searching, who wants somewhere to sleep, something to hold on to, someone. Elder gaze? If you are reading this, would love your gay input. 2 things. 1, I finally came out. Triple exclamation point. Wow, thanks. Sarcasm. Hometown woes. Comp het. Religious trauma. Seriously, how did I not realize? It's okay to be you. Regarding my previous post, edit the sad parts. 2, what do you call it when beautiful, creative people in a dark-ass place want healing, energy, something sweet, cuddling, dream boobs, sorry for staring, sex ed, praxis, daily dose of serotonin, requited romantic love, straight from a movie scene, quiet joy, pure joy, so much queer joy, memories. Anyway, I'm here. Starting again. Making up for lost time. Brand new. Lease on life. New day to begin with. Beautiful day to exist. Cubby tonight? Alright, so I remember reading that poem to a girl I had just started dating and asking her, would she go to cubbyhole with me? But the first time I would actually set foot in a queer bar would be 1 year later. 2 days before our first anniversary, 5 days before my last round of chemo. I led my then girlfriend on a tour of the West Village, Washington Square, Stonewall, Christopher Park, and finally the corner of West 12th and 4th. She thought we were just pausing to take a photo outside cubbyhole, but I'd arranged for the bar to open early, just for us as an anniversary surprise. It was magical, stepping inside, taking in that space for the first time. The decorations on the ceiling, the clock that said 3:30 p.m., the neon sign that said love. No crowds, no masks, just a gentle welcome from the bartender who had taken a COVID test that morning for me. My girlfriend ordered a drink. I took a few sips of a Coke. I took out the marker that I'd brought wrote our names on a napkin, hers in the hangul I'd so carefully rehearsed, drew a heart in the middle, and then I think I maybe asked her to dance, or at least mustered the strength to stand long enough to embrace milestones, joy, love, and life. Yeah. And this next poem is called On Why You Haven't Seen Me Here Before. It's the steps, the double doors in winter, the but where will I lock my scooter, the high CO2, the uncancelable noise, the I can't hear yous in response to my mask. It's the chronic fatigue, the need to belong but needing some help just to get there, just to get in, just to get through. No, you haven't seen me here before, except for maybe one quiet afternoon when this backyard felt like home, or the early countdown New Year's Eve where I briefly basked in joy, then sat outside across a cobblestone street, watched the snow fall, and felt grateful for just a glimpse from outside or a moment within, a chance to be seen and belong. So I'll raise a glass to the open signs, the open doors, the places that welcome us in, to the open air, the smooth paved trails, the wheelchair mats at Reese, to the buzz-cut divas who catch my eye inside the infusion suite, to queer spaces, to queer souls, to existing, surviving, still becoming. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Sherwood. Thank you. Was that my wife? So several years ago, let's call it 11, because that's how long ago it was, I was at the United States Army Airborne School. Thank you very much. And I had a hair that went all the way around my head in a mess of bouncy curls that I could only tame with an inordinate amount of mousse and a dense bun. Mousse because I'm a lesbian. I didn't know how to do my hair. And the thing about the United States Army Airborne School is that safety is paramount. Since we're going to be jumping out of the airplanes, we have to wear helmets. And helmets are not a problem if you're just casually strapping them on. No? Okay. Thank you. But at the United States Army Airborne School, you'd be standing there for milliseconds before somebody barked, "Get 'em on. Right face, forward march, double time march," in very quick succession. And as airborne school went on, the time between "get 'em on" and right face was getting exponentially shorter, such that by the time we got to double time march, I was running and trying to pull that dense ass bun out of the back of the helmet straps while trying not to trip over my own feet. So about 1 or 2 weeks into airborne school, I decided to cut all my hair off for the first time in my adult life. And I was excited. New look, new me. No risk of face planting and taking out the formation. But what I didn't know about was the demon lurking in the corner of my mind, arguably the queerest space of them all. Beneath the layers of Mediterranean locks and curled up against my Egyptian upbringing, internalized homophobia. Importantly, I was very out at this point. It was 2015. Don't Ask, Don't Tell had been repealed. I was the first openly gay commander of the unit that I was in. I had rainbow paraphernalia as far as the eye could see. I had a lady partner. Except for my presentation up until that point, there was no question that I was a woman who loved women in the biblical sense. So I get home, and I'm at a baseball game with my girlfriend, and she goes to hold my hand, and I pull away, and I say, what if people think I'm gay? Like, what if people can tell I'm gay? And she says, Well, people aren't going to think you're gay because your hair is short. They do. But she said maybe they'll think you're gay because you're dating a woman, which was like a solid point. I went from passing to presenting that year, which also comes with a fair share of misgendering. I was at the Qdoba recently when the cashier said, "Is that all, Papi?" To which I responded, actually, I identify as mommy. But Papi in private. It took a while to get comfortable looking like this. Being like this in a world where I don't know who a lady with a shaved head in a suit is going to outrage. But two things keep happening every time my girl Lydia gives me a fresh cut at the long and short barber. First, my wife invariably says, "You look like a goddamn warrior." And second, when I look in the mirror and I straighten up my tie, I see the presentation that matches my heart. Thank you.
Okay, so my first time at a lesbian bar was actually 2015 at Cubby Hole. A shock to no one. That is anyone's first, I think, right? Like anyone's like first lesbian bar in New York City. I went there as a fresh immigrant from Venezuela. That place that is never gonna become a state from the US, just saying. You heard it here first. My first time there, I was, kind of like clueless about like the whole scene. And I didn't think lesbian bars actually existed, if that makes sense. I grew up watching The L Word. I'm 35. So The Planet, that wasn't a thing, ever. I didn't know. And I had a job interview 2 blocks away from Cubby Hole. I showed up there. I was like, oh, well, it's a lesbian bar. And I got there. I get a Guinness. And little Debbie, I don't know if anyone is familiar. I don't think she works there anymore. She gives me my beer and she gives me a shot. And followed by the shot was like, my question was like, I didn't get a shot though. I got a beer, I paid for my beer. And I just asked why as I'm holding the shot. And I remember she just like turned back to me and said, "Baby, if someone gives you like something for free in New York City, just like take it and move along. If you want a tip on your way out, that's good too." And those words, now I'm a bartender, believe it or not, at the establishment. This fine establishment. Thank you all for being here. The city situation could have been better. But yeah, like those are words that like stuck with me because being an immigrant, being here so far from home, the shock about being at a lesbian bar, I grew up going to gay men bars or like focus on gay men. I have been around gay men since I was like 15. And the shock of being at actual lesbian bar, like a queer space, that it wasn't like only gay men focus, was a lot. And I remember just thinking about that day, about like how horrible my interview went. And then I went to a bar, and out of that I got free pizza on happy hour, a whole meal. I got a few free shots, and I ended up with like at least 4 or 5 different friends that are my friends until this day. So that's why I want to say that felt for the first time in all of this time, in all of these years, or like at least back then, the first time that I got to the US as a home away from home. And that's what makes these spaces so important to us. And the fact that you guys like took the time to go on like a whole road trip to do this, you have no idea how much it means for anyone. It's, in my heart, it's like, oh my God, if I didn't have this space, if I hadn't had a Cubby Hole when I had it, we can't let them die. That's the thing. And still, I think about little Debbie every time that I think about getting very hungover the next day. But, that's a whole different story. But yes, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Cruising. If you like this episode, please consider leaving us a 5-star review. It really helps others discover our podcast. Cruising is produced by a small but mighty team of 3 queer women, Rachel Karp, Jen McGinnity, and me, your host and editor, Sarah Gabrielli. Our theme song is by Joey Freeman. You can support us at buymeacoffee.com/cruisingpod. Follow us on social media at cruisingpod, on Substack, cruisingpod.substack.com, and at our website, www.cruisingpod.com. Special thanks to Sub Rosa and everyone who shared their stories there.